Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Forward podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Rainica, a mindset coach and former Ivy League athlete, here to help student athletes, parents, and coaches focus on progress, not perfection. Every other week, we'll welcome a new guest with relevant experience to share their perspectives and tools to support growth on and off the field. We're in for a treat today. Our next guest is Olivia Papakyrikos, a licensed therapist and sports psychology consultant based in Boston. Through her practice, Papakyrikos Therapy and Performance, Olivia works with competitive athletes, college students, and high-performing individuals navigating pressure, expectations, and the mental load that comes with showing up at a high level every single day. She has collaborated with athletic teams and departments at schools like Northeastern, UMass Amherst, Tufts, Middlebury, and Harvard, providing integrated psychotherapy and performance psychology services to student athletes. One thing I love about Olivia is her core belief: performance and mental health are not competing priorities. They're deeply connected. She's here today to discuss exactly that. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. New friends.
The best.
Live from Boston. So tell us, growing up, what was your relationship like with performance and pressure, and how did that shape your path and where you are today?
Growing up, there was definitely pressure to perform. There was pressure to do well. In my family, I'm the youngest of four, and my siblings are all really high achievers, like doctors, PhDs, right? So academically growing up, there was pressure to do well. And that pressure was also in sports as well, right? The pressure to just perform and make sure you're kind of checking these boxes or accomplishing something. And so it was something when I was younger I didn't necessarily recognize. Looking back, I can see it now very clearly, but at the time it was just normal. This is just what we do. And so I think it wasn't until college when I started to kind of realize, wait a minute, when I'm injured and I can't play, I feel like I don't know who I am and I lose this part of myself, and my self-worth feels like it's being challenged because I'm not performing at that same level or I'm not contributing in that same way. And it really highlighted to me this area of when I'm competing, that feels so tied to my worth and what I'm bringing, and to really want to do the work to disconnect that, because in so many environments, we're human, we're not going to be perfect, we're not always going to accomplish so much. And so it took a lot to really untangle that and realize, no, even if I'm sitting on the sidelines, or even if I get a B or even a C sometimes on a test, that doesn't make me less worthy. And I think the pressure to perform in our society is just kind of at an all-time high at this point.
It sounds like you had a lot of that pressure within yourself and you were putting it on yourself, probably because you were in this environment and you saw your older siblings doing that. Yeah. What was it like watching your older siblings? Did you all play the same sports? What were your parents like?
Yeah. So me and my sisters all played field hockey. In high school, it was just my older sister and I. The middle one did cross country. And my brother did Division I rowing, and he was kind of at a different school. He went to a different private school. So it was an interesting environment, because growing up, my brother went to boarding school and we were day students at a school. And so it was just me and my sisters. And I think, if anything, it almost made for more comparison, because it's just us three girls all at the same school, 1 or 2 years apart. And even playing on the same team as my big sister my freshman year, I remember just feeling like I had to almost prove myself or show myself. And I think it led me and my sister to have a really hard relationship at that time, just because I was trying to be as good as her, make sure my presence was known and not just to be the little sister. And so I think it was an interesting dynamic. And my parents, I think, my dad had a business. He was always in Boston working, and my mom was taking care of 4 kids. And so I think they were just really busy. There wasn't as much space to really kind of go through it or be oh, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm noticing. But there was a lot of just pressure. There was a lot of, this sibling won all these awards academically, that's so cool. And it maybe wasn't you should do that too, but this kind of unspoken thing of, oh, well, this is the baseline for that sibling. She's winning everything, right? What are you doing, or what are you bringing in that moment? And so there was a lot of, I think, comparison, even unintentionally happening. And I think that exists everywhere, right? We don't realize we're comparing our children to each other or our friends to each other, but we do it a lot and in a lot of environments. And it can really start to lead to that internalized belief of, I have to hit certain benchmarks or milestones. And that was a big part of it. I felt like there was always okay, if they're doing that, I need to do it too.
Did they both play in college?
My sisters actually didn't. They did just more of like, one of them is more artistic, so she did more of like art and design and things like that. And the other one just wasn't as athlete driven. So just me and my brother were the ones to play in college.
And what was that process like getting recruited?
It was hard at the time. I was just starting to have injuries pop up or have my compartment syndrome in my legs start to be like something I was noticing. And I think that definitely impacted my ability to then also perform at a lot of these showcases and do what I wanted to do. But I remember going to recruiting, showcases and just the pressure, like feeling so nervous. I couldn't eat the morning of, like not being able to think straight or just feeling so worried about like, what if I'm not going to perform well? What's going to happen? What if I mess up? And so I think in a lot of ways, like not having the skills to manage all of that pressure really also made it harder for me to go through that because it felt like I had to hit this high benchmark or this high level to have it be good enough. And, having ended up playing Division III field hockey, and that was the best choice for me, and that was the right balance, that was the perfect fit. And having so many injuries pop up and having that journey be not what I expected, I think really challenged me in a lot of ways to kind of reframe just my relationship with what performance means and what achievement even means, right? Like it doesn't mean you have to be a Division I athlete. It doesn't mean you have to hit some benchmark to be worthy or to be an athlete. And I think that comes up a lot of just like the pressure to be the best or to hit this benchmark that maybe doesn't always align with everybody.
Right. What would you say to a student athlete who maybe is trying to play at a Division I level, but realistically D3 would be a better fit?
Yeah.
And they might be feeling that pressure.
Mm-hmm. I would say that there are pros and cons to both, right? Like Division I sports is even more of a grind in the sense of your balance. Like you don't have really much, if any, time to yourself. You're constantly juggling a million different things. And whether, while that's still true in Division II and Division III, you get a little bit more autonomy or freedom to focus on friendships or life or go study abroad, right? Like things that maybe when you're a Division I athlete are just not as feasible or are harder to do. And I think there's a pro and a con to every experience. Do you want to be able to get playing time? Like some people are like, I just want to be on a Division I team and that's so cool. And I just want to be there, right? Even if I don't play. And that's still an awesome accomplishment, right? That's amazing. For some people, it's like, no, I want to really get playing time. I want to keep growing as an athlete. And maybe a Division II or Division III team is going to balance that better for you. And so I think it's also thinking about like, what do you want your college experience to be like? Do you want it to be entirely rooted around your sport? Do you want to have a little bit more balance or free time for other things, right? What is that going to look like? Because college is a huge transition for everyone, no matter what. And so kind of being able to understand what that's going to look like and what do you actually want separate from what the world or what mom and dad or what, your coach wants for you.
Yeah. And you currently work with student athletes across different divisions and universities in the Boston area. What do you find across divisions, or maybe not, maybe it's different, but what's a typical challenge or something that you're helping those student athletes work through?
So right now, I think the biggest theme I've seen is just like the expectation or desire to be perfect. And also the idea that like a mistake is this fatal flaw. Like if I make a mistake, no one's going to like me. I'm ruining everything. I am a failure, right? And I think it comes up a lot, that fear of just making mistakes and failure and kind of navigating, right? What does it actually mean? Like what happens when we actually make a mistake and really trying to work through that and create a different relationship with performance and what that looks like. Because when making a mistake feels so heavy, then we have more nerves going into a game, right? The pressure, the anxiety, like all of those things start to creep in. And we're probably not going to be performing at our best because we're so worried about making a mistake that we're not actually playing present in the moment and really like pushing ourselves in that way, right? We're focusing on everything else instead of what's actually happening in front of us.
So when you're working with these schools, are you working individually, as a team? What does that look like?
Yeah. So it depends. So some of these schools I work individually with them. So I do one-on-one sessions with athletes, and other schools I do more like team-based workshops. So I do workshops with the team. I do talks or conversations with the coaches, even sports medicine staff at times, to either help do trainings, leadership, team culture, but especially the mental skills training of, developing the mental tools needed to sustain performing at a high level, right? Because if we're asking our athletes to do all of this work and to push and to grind and to reach these high levels of performance, we also need to be equipping them with the tools to manage that mentally so they don't burn out, so they don't like feel like it's just too much and they can't withstand or they can't sustain it, right? And so really giving them the tools to be successful mentally.
What are some of those tools?
Mm-hmm.
Without giving the whole secret sauce, like what's maybe something someone can try right now if they're struggling?
Well, so I guess it would depend on what they're struggling with. But
Right.
one thing I would say, and this is a pretty like baseline one, would be like looking at your self-talk, right? Like even our inner critic or that inner dialogue. And so a lot of us, like we are our worst enemy. We are our own worst critic. And a lot of it is like, how do we get you to be your own best teammate? Like if you can be the best teammate for yourself, that is going to help you perform in so many ways, right? The research shows that our self-talk does strongly impact our performance. And so if I'm saying, I'm the worst, I suck, I'm never going to do well, I'm going to fail, like that is going to limit your ability to succeed. So the first step really is that awareness of like, what is that self-talk? What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Or what do you say to yourself before a big moment? And then looking about like, is that helping me or is that hurting me, right? Like, what is that self-talk actually doing for me? And then trying to reframe it to create more either neutral or positive statements that we can start to practice and build routine around. And obviously, it doesn't change overnight, right? Just being aware of it is not going to mean our self-talk goes to this really supportive and adaptive space, but really practicing the skill of reframing our self-talk so that we can be supportive of ourselves. We can really encourage ourselves to succeed because then we also will celebrate our successes more because we're actually acknowledging them.
And taking time to celebrate is important too.
It's huge.
How much of your experience do you weave into your work and share with the student athletes, or how has it impacted your work and approach?
So inevitably, I think a lot of people who do come to me, it's like, okay, you were an athlete, you get it. Like that's something people just say a lot. Like, okay, you've been in that similar situation. And so I think just inherently being an athlete and having that be something I'm, advertise or kind of say just in my bio and part of who I am, that is a big connecting point for a lot of people, I think. But depending on the situation and what they're going through. So if there's an athlete who's navigating injury or injury recovery or surgery, like those are things I directly navigated a lot of. Depending on the moment and if it's going to be helpful to them, like kind of disclosing a little bit of that, right, as appropriate to kind of say like, I understand some of these things or I've dealt with similar things. It may not feel the same. And, I hear you, it can be really hard. And so really trying to lean on some of those experiences to say like, it can feel like nobody gets it sometimes. It can feel like, especially when you're an injured athlete, like nobody gets it. Like this is so hard. This is so heavy. Nobody really talks about it in the mental side of it. And so I think having a space where that person has gone through something like that or something similar can be really helpful to know, yeah, like it does stink. Like it sucks to watch your team practice and play games and want to be out there and you can't do that,
So you went through 2 surgeries. What pushed you or motivated you to keep going?
Honestly, I loved it. Like I loved playing. It was so fun to me. It was like my favorite thing to do. So like it didn't feel like a question of whether to keep going. I think my junior year was finally when I was like, am I going to be able to keep going? Right. Because how it worked was like I'd play my freshman season and then I got surgery after, played my sophomore season, got surgery after, and like surgery on both my legs at the same time. Like it was.
Yeah, sorry. If you don't mind sharing, like what was your injury and how was it treated?
Yeah. So I had compartment syndrome in my legs. And so it's in all 4 quadrants of your lower leg. And so they do things to try to like, basically there's a lot of pressure that builds up as you have impact. So you're running or competing, training. And when that pressure expands, when your muscles contract, it puts a lot more pressure on your bones and your nerves because the layer outside of your muscle, the fascia, this is my version of it, so it's not a medical definition, but it isn't expanding when your muscles contract. And so it restricts your legs, so your legs can go numb. It can be really painful. You can get more stress fractures. And so it was a very challenging journey because as I like all season when I played, like it wasn't I'm playing pain-free. Like I was playing in pain. Like it always hurt. It was always a struggle. And so I think I had to really rely on my love of the sport and my desire to play because to play with that much pain wouldn't have been feasible if I didn't love what I did. And it was a chronic thing, right? It was safe to be playing as long as it was monitored. And there were times I had to be, rested and take time away. But it was a lot. And I think it's hard in those moments, right? It's hard because if there isn't a real internal reason that's driving you to keep going, it can feel like, what's the point? It can feel like even hopeless at times,
What were some, and maybe you didn't have the vocabulary at the time, but what were some of the tools you were leaning on during that tough
Yeah.
stretch?
So that was when I was definitely figuring it out. Like I was
Yeah.
starting to connect the dots. I knew about the field of sports psych, but I didn't necessarily know everything of like how to access it quite yet or how to utilize the stuff. And so I remember at the time I went to the counseling center being like, this stinks. I hate this. And it was like on campus, but in a spot where like it felt really like stigmatizing and like, I don't want to be walking there. I don't want people to see this. And again, this was like
Same.
over 10 years ago, right? Like, so it was like
Right.
much more stigmatized than it is now. And there is still tons of stigma out there that needs to stop. But I remember sitting in the office being like, I hope nobody sees me. I hope there's no athlete that's leaving. And then they tell everyone and they saw me there. Like, I remember just feeling so much shame and stress just even going there. And so I tried to utilize these supports. I think I tried to kind of find ways to help get through it. And it just didn't feel quite at the time like something I was able to mentally access and supports that were athlete focused. Like I think also going to a therapist that specializes in working with athletes makes such a big difference, right? Because they get it in a different way. And I found that even talking to them, a lot of times they just didn't get it. They're like, what's the big deal? You can't play it, right? And like those types of things, and you're an athlete going through it, are just like the most harmful thing to hear. Because
Mm.
even if you don't get it, I'm coming to you saying, I feel awful and this isn't working, right?
Yeah.
So,
At what point did you realize, okay, this is what I want to do with my career?
so I think in doing that, the therapy, the counseling center was really what opened my eyes to like even just doing some research on sports psych. And I was like, okay, actually, like this is a niche. This is an area I like really am interested in. And I was already a psychology major, so I already
Okay.
knew that that was something I was interested in, but I didn't know how I wanted that to look because I wanted sports to be a part of what I did. I knew that was always something that was going to be important to me. And so at that time, I kind of just did a deep dive. Like I was looking up sports psychs in the area. I was like reaching out to people being like, hey, like I want to do this too. Like, can we chat? And like, obviously not many people got back to me, but a few did. And I think it really opened my eyes to like, okay, this is really cool. This is an amazing space. And I think it was my junior year. Yeah, I think my junior year where our school brought in one day a week a sports psych to have. And so that was something at that point, then I started to meet with him and really talk to him about these things. And I think that's when it really started to shift, at least in my own experience. Like I knew that this is what I wanted to do with other people, but I think I didn't have the building blocks quite yet to put the pieces together for myself. And so really working with him opened my eyes to like all of the mental skills, the self-talk, the visualization, the even just navigating the pressure to perform. Because by my senior year, like it was the national anthem and I was like, I'm praying that I can get through 70 minutes or I'm praying that I can make it through this game. Like, I don't know if I can. And so
Mm.
really even like someone to help work through that and develop like better self-talk and just better skills to listen to my body. So even if I can't get through it that day, even if my body hurts too much that day, it's like, that's okay. Maybe I get out of the game at that point. Like I don't have to make it through the whole 70 minutes if my body is saying, you can't do this right now. And so really working with someone to shift those thoughts and that perspective is really critical for me.
I mean, that takes a lot of courage to say, okay, I need help.
Mm.
And yes, you had your injuries and maybe something that your teammates were like, okay, she's injured. That makes sense that she's going to talk with someone.
Yeah.
But what was it like navigating your friendships with your teammates? And were they doing the same thing? Was it something you talked about? What was that like?
Interestingly enough, like, no, it was not something talked about, at least for my team, right? Like, I don't think anyone, maybe one other person maybe met with the sports psych. It wasn't really like prominent at that time. So it was rarely utilized for my team. We didn't talk about any of that as a team as a whole. And so it wasn't a common thing. And I think it was kind of joked about in some ways, right? Like, oh,
Mm.
like, I'm so anxious, not like me personally, but like people being like, oh, I'm so anxious and worried. But it wasn't something where it was like, oh, yeah, let me just go get some support around this. And that was openly talked about. And so I think it was hard, right? Because it was something that still felt like somewhat hidden, even though at that time I knew like it shouldn't have to be. But
Mm.
I think it's navigating that space of like, how do I approach this in a space that maybe isn't always accepting of it?
Yeah. What were your coaches like growing up through college?
In high school, I had an amazing Feel Lucky coach, like 10 out of 10. the best, was hard on us, pushed us, but also was nurturing and could communicate effectively and made it a safe environment, right? Like for us to be pushed and for her sometimes to be stern and yelling, and for us to know that was coming from a really good and safe place. And so I had the best experience in high school when it came to coaches. College, I think, just looked different. My freshman year coach ended up leaving, and that wasn't necessarily always like freshman year coaching, just it wasn't the smoothest thing. It wasn't aligning anymore. And so I think that came out in just the coaching of maybe feeling more frustrated or it being time for a pivot and a change. And then we had a new coach rest of my time in college. And so I think transitioning even to having a new coach who's settling into a school, right? Like you kind of underestimate just how much having, going into a program and having a coach that's been there and they just have the program figured out. They know what they're doing. Like it makes it much easier to transition and to navigate versus when a new coach comes in, like so much in that program is shifting and changing. And so obviously the athletes are going to feel that and they're going to notice that. And so I think my college experience with coaches wasn't necessarily bad, but I think it wasn't as effective and it wasn't as productive of maybe coaching style or communication because there was just so many transitional pieces, which isn't anyone's fault. It's just the nature of sport transition.
When you think of an excellent coach now, and I'm sure you're working with some now, what stands out to you?
I think the biggest piece is their understanding that like mental health and performance are linked, right? And so if we create psychologically or mental health like safety in a team environment, that does not compete with their competitive edge, right? We can still build mentally strong teams that are successful and high achieving and have them feel safe. Because when athletes feel safe, they are going to play stronger. They're going to perform better. They're not going to be afraid of making mistakes in that same way. When they know that their coach isn't going to scream at them and shame them if they make a mistake, they're actually going to be able to push themselves to try something new in that game or to really push that boundary. And so the coaches that I think have kind of found it and it clicks are the ones that really understand how to communicate effectively, how to lead their team and themselves, right? Set that example personally to really create this culture in their team where they're achieving a lot and they're really high performing.
I think as a college athlete or even in high school, you don't realize how much is happening behind the scenes of a coach's life and job.
Right.
And it is their life, like it's their livelihood. And sometimes we take things personally, or maybe they're having an off day. I think a lot of coaches are just trying their best and want what's best for the team and have high expectations. So it's a lot to navigate as a young person now. Yeah.
And it's so easy to forget that like coaches are under enormous pressure too.
Right.
Like it's not just the athletes, like you are under pressure too, but your coaches are too. Like for some of them at high levels, like if they don't have a winning season or they don't perform at a certain caliber, like they could lose their job. And yes, there's other jobs, but like there's a lot of pressure that coaches feel as well. And I think it's just a hard space because if we don't have the tools to manage that, under that pressure, we all can crack sometimes, or we all can kind of have the pot boil over.
Right. So like, especially for coaches looking inward too, like, okay, am I projecting how I'm feeling onto my team right now? Do I need to take a step back? I think that's important.
Yeah.
Going back to your recruiting process, how did you decide on where you wanted to go?
So I had obviously a list of schools that, I was interested in and I was contacting and just talking about like, okay, do I want to play there? What would that look like? Doing the overnights, all of that stuff. And so after doing like a lot of campus visits, I had at least like 4 or 5 schools that I was like, I really like this school. It felt right. It felt like a good campus for me as a person, like separate from athletics. I was like, this feels like a place I would be happy. And then those are the schools I did overnights at and did the recruiting visits with, and then decided from there, right, like the team environment, the coaches, like what aligned after that. And I think it's hard. I mean, even looking back, I'm like, I didn't know if I wanted a big school or a small school or like a city or a small, like I had no idea. Like I was just like, they were asking me like, where do you want to be? And I just answered whatever came to mind. Like I had no thought to really where I'd be happy. And so I think it's hard because we don't always know like what's going to be the best fit for us in the moment. And sometimes the recruiting process is what drives where we pick, but then we don't like the school. Or sometimes it's, we want a good experience, but then we actually wish we had a different one because we didn't know better. Right. Like, and so it was hard because I think as much as I did the best I could, I think for any college student going through it, like it's hard to know. And I think that's also why transfer rates are so high, because
Mm,
when sports are involved, like sometimes it's just, okay, this is a good opportunity. This is a great school. I'll go here, but it may not be the best fit for me.
yeah. And there's just so much noise
Yeah.
happening. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you have your parents telling you one opinion, you have your club coach telling you one thing, high school
Mhm.
coach, friends, expectations. It's hard to decide what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking back, would you have done anything differently in terms of your approach?
Well, I completely agree. I think there's so much noise and there's too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes. Like everyone is giving their opinion and you're like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have done anything different. I think the only thing would have been reflecting more on like what it meant to go to a bigger school or a smaller school. Like I just kind of didn't put a ton of thought into it. And so really taking time to, and whether it's talking to someone about it who, is a college counselor, whatever it might be, like really talking through it, because I think part of me sometimes wonders, like, would I have enjoyed a bigger school a little bit better versus like a lot smaller of a school? And I don't think there's a right or a wrong there. I had a great experience, but I think the only thing is like trying to figure out what makes sense for you. Like, do you like to be in a busy environment, or do you like to know everyone on campus and have it be like a space where you kind of recognize everyone going by? And so really trying to figure out like what works for you.
Hmm. Do you work with parents ever?
Yeah. Yep.
What are common questions or challenges that you work through with
Yeah.
parents?
I think what's tricky is depends on what they're coming in for,
Right.
right? Sometimes I'm trying to support my child in their sport, but it's like I keep getting brushed off, or whatever it might be. And I think a lot of it is like, how do we explore what is your role as a sport parent? Like, what are you there to be doing, and what's the focus supposed to be, right? Because if you have all these different coaches putting pressure on you and you're also feeling pressure to perform, if your parent picks you up from that game and is like, how'd you play? Like, did you perform well? You should have done this differently, right? Like, you don't need one more person assessing you and coaching you. You need a parent and you
Mm,
need that safe space. And so, really working with them to think, okay, what is happening in these interactions that isn't working? And how can you better support your athlete, right? And how can you support their development? Because parents have the best intentions. Like, they mean so well. It's usually never bad intent. It's
mm,
just how it gets received is different, right? Like, it's a different generation of social media, and like they're in a different world. So we have to recognize that what we grew up around isn't what they're growing up around. And sometimes we just need a break. Sometimes we just need like a parent that's like, great job, you worked hard, right? What do you want for dinner?
yeah. It can
So
be it can be simple.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's so hard for parents, and I know it's difficult to navigate. So even the fact that they're reaching out to you and want to help their child, navigate this really difficult part of their life is a huge step.
Mhm.
And then I know you work with coaches too. What's a common concern, or how do you help them address any of their challenges?
Yeah. For coaches, a lot of it often is like managing the pressure, right? Like finding the balance of just, you're showing up, you're doing these things. I mean, sometimes coaches are getting yelled at by parents that their kid isn't getting enough playing time, or, they're getting so much, again, noise from all these different directions. And so for a lot of coaches, it's one, like finding ways to manage pressure, having a sounding board to go through things of like, yeah, does that seem to align or make sense, right? Is that supporting, right, what I'm trying to do with this team? And also a lot of like mental skills training and development, right? Like teaching them some of these mental skills so they can try to infuse it in some of their work. Because although,
Mm,
yes, they are not necessarily a mental performance coach by trade, there's ways that coaches can infuse a lot of this into their work to build stronger programs. And so it's helping them to create a program that is going to be more successful and mentally stronger.
mm. Yeah, they have a lot on their plates. Everyone has a lot on their
Yeah, we all do. Everyone does.
We do. It's a lot, but it's awesome that there are people like you who exist who can help navigate and just,
Mm,
put it all into perspective and take a step back and think about what are we all trying to accomplish.
yeah.
And in most cases, yes, for coaches, it could be their job and their livelihood. But when it comes down to it, we're just playing some fun games.
Yeah.
It should be
Actually.
fun, right?
Yeah. We're just like having fun. Like, we're
Yeah,
playing. Like, sports are
yeah,
play.
it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Was there anything else that you wanted to answer or share that I might have missed?
No, I mean, I think that, whether you're an athlete, a coach, anyone that's looking for, support, or anyone that just feels like it's exhausting, something doesn't feel right, maybe they're not playing as well, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say something feels off. It doesn't have to mean there's this greater massive issue, but sometimes it just means, okay, let's explore it. Let's develop the mental skills that are going to help you perform in any area of life, right? Like, those are skills that are going to serve you in school, in your future job, with your family. And so if it ever feels like something isn't quite right, something isn't aligning, or it just doesn't feel good, I think, taking that step, it's scary, but really asking anyone just for support, for help, really saying, hey, I think there's something that could be fixed. I think there's something that could be improved right now.
Hmm. Speaking my language.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Where can listeners find you?
Yeah. So you can follow me on my Instagram, Olivia Papakyrikos, where I post a lot of different sports psych stuff as well as like mental health therapy, just like tips or ways to kind of find the balance. And then I have a website, oliviapapakyrikos.com, where it tells you all sorts of stuff about like programming and services, and you can always reach out and connect. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yay. Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm so
Of
glad we're
course.
in touch. It's always awesome to find like-minded people and support. So I know I'll be reaching out to you lots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. You're welcome to. And it's been
Yeah.
great. It's been so great hearing about you and learning about your journey too.
Oh, thank you.